If y'all didn't love Pookies, we wouldn't ever have to address it because that's the bottom. That's the dredge of our of black men's society. We could give two shits about those dudes. We think like the way I see it. I believe that it's the. I think women make poor choices in who they decide to mate with far too often.
Oh, so you think that is your mating, and then the kids come out to be just like the person, the father? Is that what you're saying?
You mate with a Pookie, you go end up with a Pookie kid.
So I have a lot of serious pushback for that, right? Because we just finished talking about people who don't leave those communities. And so if you're choosing from the best option of that community, and then there's a brain drain in that community, what do you have left to choose from, right? Like, I think that's not a fair statement. And I think discarding them as if they're not human beings is not fair either. Are they detrimental to society? Absolutely. But I think we need to address what the actual issue is and stop like throwing them away because they're still people and they're still a part of our community, right? I think, at least from the way that I see things, there's a whole lot of like complex trauma that people are struggling with, right? Um, I'd heard one psychologist kind of talk about the men who move like that, especially the boys, right? Is this idea of not wanting to be seen. Don't look too closely because then you're going to see all of the trauma on me. And so it's this expression of like hyper masculinity that goes into like that toxic masculinity conversation in order to feel worthy of respect, right? And so when we can address that and provide a safer environment for people to unpack things and learn a different way of exercising masculinity that's more productive, I think that'll be different. And I think that goes to what we were saying earlier, that it goes back to having fathers in the home, because when you have a man who can show you the example of what that looks like, then that gets replicated over and over again. But when you remove the man, you have a bunch of boys growing up with women understanding like the way you're teaching me to be a man is not, it doesn't feel right. And so I'm going to revolt against it because Marcus talked about how masculinity is a rebellion. They rebel against what they're taught and kind of take this path.
Okay, so as a young man who took school extremely serious, until I really until it became evident that I was going to be something of a ball player, so to speak, chicks wasn't hollering at me because I wasn't a baller. I wasn't the dude that was, you know, on the side making money like that. That's not who I was. So there are other options in the hood. Women love these Pookies and these Ray Rays. So when we say that it's not fair, shit, these hoes be skipping over regular ass dudes that are living in these situations that are looking for a way out, and they end up with what they end up with. Like, of course, it's not fair. I mean, I could say, hey, it wasn't fair for me. Nobody really wanted to date me until I went to college. Well, actually, the white girls did, but that was a whole different animal. You
But
I'm just saying, like, we can't say that they don't have any options when there are options. They don't take those options because those guys aren't the ones that's out on the corner balling with a little bit of pocket change. I'm
so
just saying.
how is that an excuse? But we use the same logic when it comes to women being half dressed. Those women are being chosen as well. Those women are the women who are getting the attention. It's the same thing both ways. Men give
That's
women who are over sexualizing themselves a lot of attention. Women may give Mr. Guy on the street a lot of attention and
I'm glad
overlook
you
the
brought that
good.
up.
Everybody, all the good people are getting overlooked.
I'm glad you brought that up because my opinion is it is these Pookies and these Charlises that are making up the entire damn hood. Like, I think they're mating. The truth of the matter is, I think they're mating with each other. So when we see
A lot.
this foolishness out in the hood, right? When we see this out there, is it's Pookie and Pookisha that's made a baby that Pookie is not going to be there for. He's going to find himself another Pookisha to make another baby, and it's going to be another. It's going to be this perpetual cycle that continues to happen. That continues to happen. It's just going to become circular. I'm sorry. I'll get off my soapbox for a minute. Y'all go ahead.
Go ahead, Enos.
You're fine. So I think like, because I hear this whole choosing thing and like decision thing all the time, and I think we overlook like the illusion of choice. I think if we dig a little bit deeper into that, then it's not as simple as you're choosing the wrong person. One, you have people who are dealing with like severe fight or flight every day. Like people are out here struggling to survive, right? So what choices you have, what choices you're presented are very different to you than they are to somebody who doesn't have to worry about where they're going to sleep or where their next meal is coming from. The second part to that is that when we say, you know, these Pukishas and these Pookies and Ray Rays are overlooking the average person, do we really factor in the fact that they're not actually equipped to have a healthy relationship with those people? And things like self-sabotage come in, things like separation comes in. Like those two people don't actually fit together. So you're going to wind up getting with somebody who you do fit with. And unless you're providing people the tools to do better and be better, they're going to constantly make the same decision because that's the only viable choice that they have. It's not really a choice to pick somebody healthy. It's not going to work.
True. That's a good point. Anybody want to?
I agree.
I don't necessarily.
Oh, good. I don't even know what to say. I'm like,
Yeah, back off of what she
So,
said.
What you basically said is we're all screwed either way. Not necessarily, but I think she was saying we need to like normalize teaching the skills to cope, to be able to like what I was talking about earlier, conflict resolution.
Of course, I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree with that.
Right.
Like,
But
and
do
that should
people
be what
really
we
want
focus
to
on.
learn, Marcus? Do they really want to learn?
The other thing is like what she was saying too is also about exposure and access. So if all you are exposed to and all you have access to are the other people that are in your environment, is not that Pukisha just keeping poop, you know, overlooking everybody else and choosing a Pookie. It's just more Pookies to choose from in the environment that she's in. And so in that regard, you can't be like, oh, she chose a Pookie when she only has access to a Pookie.
Well, you know what? I think that might be an overrepresentation. There are because I grew up. Damn, this is weird. Leaving New York, that was the hood. But after that, I grew up hood adjacent. I always lived in that. My parents did just well enough so I could grow up poor around white people. You heard Dave Chappelle say that? So I was always like hooded in that neighborhood that was right next to the hood before you get to the white community, right? And one of the things that I noticed is that AP was kind of right. There are a lot of dudes that get overlooked simply because they're unwilling to get into the gang activity and all of that. Because it's not just the access to them that's a part of it. Yes, it's the appeal of these men. The entire culture is based around those guys being the coolest guys in the neighborhood. So there are dudes that show genuine interest. And remember, we all ride the same bus to school. So you can see your whole life that they're looking in the direction of those men who they know are bad for them, who they know don't show up, skip class, encourage bad behavior and all of that. But they literally have their eyes fixed on them from 5th grade all the way to graduation. Go ahead.
But even the young boys are influenced by the same girls that that you're talking about that like those guys. Those same guys that are their age are also being influenced by those older guys. I've heard numerous stories how younger guys look up to the older guys that are in the hood that are doing their thing, and that was what they wanted to emulate. And when they got older, they wanted to do the same thing because they saw in their mind the benefits that came along with that. They had, fresh gold change, they had a girl, they had all of those things. So everybody is trying to access the, I guess, Pookie or whoever that's in that hood that is what they deem successful in that environment.